Thank you very much for watching my bikepacking film. This is the first bikepacking adventure film of 2023. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel because I bring out a film just like this from all over the world every single month. This is the part of the video where I run through the route and a bit of the behind the scenes. So if you're interested in that, stick around and I'll run through all that for you now. So this is actually the first time that I've left Europe. My entire life I've been in the UK, but I've also travelled around Europe on holiday and other bikepacking trips. So I was super excited to visit somewhere different. The reason I wanted to go to California was twofold really. Number one, I wanted to explore another part of the world where the weather was pretty fair, and California, as you know, is known for that. But also, my best mate has moved out to near Palo Alto for a job at Stanford University. He was willing to show me around for a bit, pick me up from the airport and store my stuff, which was also very helpful. I hadn't seen him for over a year, so it was really nice just to catch up as well. So the route was supposed to be 3 nights. I was in the US for over a week, but the actual bikepacking section was supposed to be 3 nights. Now, you may have noticed in the film, I only did 2 nights, and because the first day, I ended up running into a bit of a disaster. I started the route at San Bruno. I got the CalTrain from San Francisco to there. I cycled up to the Sweeney Ridge, which is a beautiful cycling track, no traffic at all, really beautiful. You end up going over the ridge, you can see San Francisco and the Bay Area, it's really stunning. As I got to the top, I was following my route, everything was going well, but I ended up hitting a massive 12-foot gate and it was locked. Well, I didn't have any other option. I couldn't get around it, so I tried going different routes around the park, trying to get to this point to carry on my journey, and it was just impossible. I ended up rerouting and looking at my phone and thinking, how can I get to this point? And it ended up taking me miles away, and I'd end up having to ride on the highway or somewhere near there. And it added like 80 miles to my day, so I just thought, I'm not going to get to the point where I wanted to get to in time. I was going to wild camp in the redwood forest. Instead of that, I had to cycle back to the train station and get a train back to my mate's house and stayed there for another night, where I then continued the following day. So day 1 was relatively short because of the gate mishap. I ended up following a few different routes and came to what I thought was a way out and ended up having exactly the same thing happen to me again. Right, well, made a bit of a cock up here. On my route, when I planned it, it looked like there was a gate at the top of the ridge that would open and it was plain sailing following the road back down the ridge, but that was locked. So I ended up following a different cycle track and then it seemed to just end. There was an open gate, carried on riding, and it just turned into this. You can see behind me, just dirt. And then I've reached the end, down at the bottom of the mountain, and you can see it's locked. So it says private property on it, and I don't fancy someone coming out at me with a gun, so I think I'm gonna have to turn around. But it's literally all the way up there. Okay, see you soon. So in the end, I was pretty exhausted from all the hiker bike. I ended up calling my mate and going back to his house like I mentioned. The following day, I rejoined my route where I was supposed to be that night. I got the train back to Palo Alto and cycled up to rejoin the route there. So I started my route at Palo Alto and headed up the Skyline Boulevard down to Lomond, and that's where I had my first stop and something to eat at that convenience shop. And from there, I carried on down to Boulder Creek. So most of that day was on the road. So that area of California is called Scotts Valley, and the reason for that, I imagine a lot of Scots emigrated over there in the past, because a lot of villages and other landmarks are named after things from Scotland. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I absolutely love Scotland and spend a lot of my year bikepacking up there. So it was quite funny, like I say, cycling around there. I saw things like Ben Lomond and Bonnie Doon, and there's even a reservoir which they've called Loch Lomond, which resembles nothing like the actual Loch Lomond, which is much more beautiful. But even so, it was quite funny cycling around just seeing that throwback and that heritage. So when I arrived at Boulder Creek, that felt a little bit more like what we would probably consider a stereotypical American town. Wide roads, lots of old wooden shops, quite a different contrast to what we have over in Europe. But I was staying at Masood's lodge, which was a lovely caravan park basically with lodges that you could use, had a log fire. I ended up by the river in this massive lodge which fits a family of probably 6, but I had it all to myself, which was lovely. Some of the day I followed the Skyline Ridge Trail, which is a little bit rough, but the trails around that location, the whole of Silicon Valley to be honest, are absolutely fantastic. It's like dry, compact sand and dirt, so suitable for gravel bikes, suitable for mountain bikes. It made a real contrast really. It was good just getting off the road and following these trails. The vast majority of them are suitable for walkers and cyclists, which is fantastic. Here in the UK you tend to find that there's footpaths and bridleways and they don't always mix, which can be quite frustrating as a cyclist, but over there they were brilliant. So on the third day my plan was to do a loop and head back down to Silicon Valley and then onward to San Francisco eventually via the Black Mountain Backpackers Camp. It's a campsite that you do need a permit for, but it's only a few dollars and there's not really much there. It's very basic, just compostable toilets, no running water or anything, but they do have these big bear cupboard type things where you can shove all your stuff and lock it just in case there are bears, but there aren't really many bears around that part of Northern California, but there are mountain lions and coyotes. I actually saw some coyotes and some deer, but I thankfully didn't see any mountain lions. Being on your own in a single person tent with mountain lions is probably not the best situation to find yourself in. I was the only one at the Black Mountain Backpack Camp. I was expecting people to come later, but they just didn't show up, so I had the whole place to myself. No one actually checked my permit, but I had it just in case. As is often the way with bikepacking, occasionally things go wrong. Even if it's just slightly wrong, it can be a bit of an inconvenience. In this case, I was at the backpack camp and I went to get changed in the toilets. It's like a 10-foot drop into a compostable pit, so there's no running water. It doesn't smell terrific, I've got to be honest, but I went in there to get changed. So I hung up all my stuff on the railing round there, got out of my cycling kit, I turned around and I could see out the corner of my eye my t-shirt was slipping off the rail and it fell right into the hole, right into the bottom of the toilet, covered in God knows what. And that was my only t-shirt while I was there, so I was a little bit miffed, but worse things have happened, I'm sure, but it was a little bit annoying. And for one second I thought, oh, I'll go down and get it. And I just thought, I'm never going to wear that again in my life. So I just left it there, unfortunately. Hopefully the people who come and flush out the toilets in the morning weren't too annoyed, but there's nothing I could do. Where that backpacker camp was, there are some absolutely incredible dirt trails. I saw a couple of bikers there in the morning, but it's basically hiking trails, cycling trails, and because you're above the cloud line, you get some incredible inversions. In that bay area around San Francisco, it does tend to be quite foggy. That comes off the sea and settles in the valley, so if you're above the clouds, you'll have seen in the film, I got some stunning views in the morning and in the evening. But if you're heading down there, it's definitely a must visit. Check out those trails. There was a few different ones. The one I was following was the Black Mountain Trail, but there's all kinds of different ones as well that you should check out while you're there. Another benefit of being above the clouds when you're bike packing is that you don't tend to get as cold. All the moisture sits below where you're sleeping, so you don't end up with a wet tent in the morning. Another fantastic thing about it is because there's no clouds, you get an incredible view of the sky, and that's exactly what happened for me. I set the camera up and got a star lapse that was just absolutely beautiful. One of the best that I've caught actually. Because I wasn't too far from the airport, there were a few planes going back and forth, but it was absolutely stunning and so glad I did that. Just set the camera up, fell asleep for a couple of hours and woke up to find I had this amazing star lapse. So on day 4 I had a pretty chilled day. I had one day of touristing planned, so my plan was to go back down into the valley and catch the train basically from Palo Alto back into San Francisco, just to avoid cycling on the main roads. Where I was in Silicon Valley was really good for cycling, but the nearer you get to San Francisco, naturally it's a huge city, tends to get a lot busier. I did then stay in a hotel just for my sort of holiday treat to myself, left the bike in the hotel, they were very generous, and I ended up just doing a bit of touristing, exploring the city, which was absolutely beautiful. 2023 is going to be an absolutely epic year for bikepacking films on this channel. I've already got some epic films planned in more exotic locations than ever, so I guarantee it's going to be a good one, so stay tuned. I'll see you in the next video.